Bonjour, I'm Luca, and at the age of 18, I've already delivered speeches in front of 2,000 people. I've competed in public speaking competitions, I've lost, I've won, I've received standing ovations. People have given me compliments and praise, and they've asked me how I do it. So now I help rising leaders deliver high stakes speeches. And in today's video, I have a simple practice you can do to simply get better with the mechanisms of your voice. All right? An exercise which doesn't take too long. You can do it every day before you brush your teeth or right after you take a shower, in the mirror. And essentially what you want to do is you want to grab a speech of yours, or take the transcript of maybe a famous speech. Or today I just have a book. It's The Man Behind the Enigma, Searching for Novak. I got it as a gift. I've never read it. Sorry, guys. But I opened to a random page. And what you want to do is we're going to read this page really fast. And then we're going to read it really slow. And then we're going to read it with a pitch that is really low. And then one that's rather high. And we really just want to use our voice for different situations and scenarios to build familiarity with speaking low, speaking slow, speaking fast, speaking high, raising our voice, getting excited. I know, right? I know, right? I know. I sound like Elmo, but you get the idea here. So I'm going to quickly go through it a bit, and hopefully you understand how this practice looks like. There was lots to fix. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. Far better for him to go outside, spend time in nature, and play a mix of sports for greater variety and for mental stimulation. Over the years, with his foresight and dedication and the advice of Grich and others, Djokovic returned himself from tennis's most dynamic mover. Damn. Now, we're going to read it incredibly slow, almost agonizingly slowly. There was lots to fix. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete, that's too fast. He felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. And then you can kind of combine the two. There was lots to fix. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. So there was parts where I went a bit faster. There was lots to fix. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily how you would maybe read this page, but apply this to your speech, right? In that moment, I realized greatness didn't come with great responsibility. Great responsibility came with greatness. Random example. Now we want to practice reading this with a really, I don't want to go high pitch, let's say loud, slightly louder, practicing using our voice to the fullest. There was lots to fix. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. Far better for him to go outside, spend time in nature, and play a mix of sports for greater variety and mental stimulation. Sure betcha. Now you want to try practice going lower, lowering your voice. It's not whispering, but sounding deep, letting that sink in. There was lots to fix. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. Let me skip some lines. Over the years, Djokovic would turn himself into tennis's most dynamic mover. Familiarize yourself with speaking lower, speaking louder, and then you can combine the two. Typically, I tend to end on this lower tone, especially if it's deep. In that moment, I realized what hurt most was not letting go. It was about never getting the chance to say goodbye. Does that make sense? There was lots to fix. Okay, maybe we wouldn't read it like this, but for the sense of the practice, for the exercise. When Grich met Djokovic, he felt as though the athlete was spending too much time lifting weights in gyms and wasn't having enough fun. As a little kid, all I wanted to do was have fun. I'd look out the window and see the other children playing while I was sat at my desk doing extra math books, exercises, my 9 times table. All I wanted to do was be normal. Random, out of my head example, but you understand. Play around with your voice. And sometimes you can even go higher pitch. I know, right? I know, right? I don't know why I keep going back to that same example. But it's very, there's so many different ways we can use our voice. And this is a practice you could do every day. Short, read a page whenever you're reading a book. Play around with your voice. Go loud, go soft, whisper. Get comfortable with speaking low and deep because your voice is so sore, because this event in the story was so painful to you, you can barely even say it in real time. Or if you're trying to speak like somewhat of a leader and be a bit more competent, you really need to play around with speaking louder so that everyone sitting at the back of the room can hear you, because your message is just that important. It needs to be heard by everyone. Leadership. Then, speaking slower. When you end a point, when something's important, you speak slower. Be comfortable with the pause, the silence, letting your point sink into the hearts of your audience. Let them feel it. Speaking really fast. There's times where the story is just building up to one key moment and you have to keep accelerating because there's so much excitement and everything's been building up to this, and finally you can contrast that with a pause. Because if the story keeps building up and going fast and fast and fast and fast, you don't really have a story, you have a roller coaster and it's going up and down and up and down. But just like any roller coaster, you go really, 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 really fast and you stop at the top. Then you wait before you finally drop again. And you go really, really fast again and you keep playing around with your voice and your tone and you're playing around, blah, 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 blah. And then you pause. And you build familiarity with your voice and how to use it to the fullest and play with mechanisms and different controls. It's like a video game and having a controller. You only really get good at Mortal Kombat if you know how to do a bunch of different controls, and you know what triangle does and what square does and what circle does and what X does. But if you just keep spamming circle to do the same kick move, it's not that effective. You know, if we just keep using our voice at the same base, we don't go high, we don't go low, we don't pause, we don't go fast, we don't roller coaster affect this whole thing. We're not using our voice to the fullest, to its fullest potential. So this is a really important exercise you want to be playing around with next time you read, next time you practice your speech, or next time you're just alone in the shower. Because if anyone else hears you doing this, they're going to probably think you're crazy. And that's been the video. It's on the slightly shorter end. I hope you still got some value from it. And I've been Luca, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.